Julia, good morning, and thank you very much for your patience and your time this morning. Every year we tend to sort of speak about how worse allergies are getting, the pollen in the air. Are we in for a tough one now? So many of my colleagues are busy sneezing in the newsroom this morning.
Yeah, so Dan, like we've discussed before, climate change has had a huge effect on allergies. So allergies in general are increasing, but in terms of our climate, the seasons are becoming longer. So our spring and our summer seasons are becoming longer. And what global experts say is that by 2060, they're actually predicting that our temperatures and our summers internationally are going to increase by 3 to 4 degrees Celsius each. Now, what that means is that most of the pollen that's in the air is actually going to stay airborne for a longer period of time. And the pollen is a problem more when it's airborne, because that's when people like us are breathing it in through our noses, it's getting to our mucosal surfaces, and that's when you're getting all these sniffles and sneezing and all sorts of colds and flus that start with that.
Now, how do we monitor this? Because, I mean, in winter we take the flu jab and then people get sick, they think I've got flu. But how do you monitor the levels of pollen and be able to prepare yourself?
Yes, so we actually in South Africa at the moment, and it's being led by Professor Johnny Peter, who is actually the head at our university unit. We've actually started a very, very stringent pollen monitoring in South Africa. Previously, it was only being done in Cape Town, and proudly the UCT Lung Institute is now associated with having pollen counters set up in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng as well. And what we basically do is we set up traps on rooftops, and we have a very modern device that monitors the pollen levels. And what this has shown us is that just like the international increasing levels of pollen, we saw in Cape Town, particularly last year, we estimated that there was 10 times as high a pollen count as previous years. I think it was probably a combination of the drought that Cape Town suffered, but also climate change is definitely playing a role in that. We found that in the previous decades, pollen started to spring around late September, October, and now tree pollen is actually at its very high from August all the way to October. And then, of course, grass pollen, which is a particular problem with lots of people, starts around October, November, and carries on all to March. So that's 6 months of sneezing and snuffling and all sorts of problems for people with allergies.
Now, I mean, it is a very serious thing. I mean, treatment-wise, because it can be debilitating and can affect productivity, for example, and increase work absenteeism.
Yes, yes. Yes, Dan, so, there have been so many effects that have been documented and researched and proven from allergies, from children all the way up to adults. And, it starts with children in terms of their school absenteeism and then their school grades. And in adults, your work productivity, your loss of working days, which then impacts on finances and economy, to the patient who's suffering, and also to our general economic burden in any country. So it has massive effects. It has effects on your sleep. It has effects on your wakefulness. Links have been associated with bad hay fever with driving as well, because, people who are not wide awake and concentrating on the roads because they didn't have very good sleep the night before, are obviously not able to be as sharp as they should be when they're performing acts such as driving.
Okay, Julia, very briefly, I mean, can you prevent the suffering from allergies? Can you take a flu jab? Is there something like that you can take a jab and help yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, so Dan, I think people need to know that allergies are on the rise. Allergies are serious. It's something that we take really seriously internationally. It's been proven, and you don't have to live with your allergies. There's so many things that can be done depending on how bad your allergies are. We now have the pollen counters. So, if you're particularly allergic to grass or the oak tree or the plane tree, you're actually able to tell which days are going to be really bad for you by checking on websites in South Africa Africa on our Pollen SA counter and know when your season is going to be in terms of your bad symptoms. And then we have treatment, the normal treatments which have been used for a long time for inflammation in your nose, in your chest, because asthma is also something that's badly triggered in terms of people who are allergic. And in terms of a cure, Dan, we have immunotherapy now. So if you are very, very badly allergic to something, yes, the answer is it can be cured, you can be desensitized, and you do not have to spend your life suffering with bad allergies anymore. Those days are gone.
Thank you very much.
A bit of good news in South Africa for this morning.
Okay, a bit of good news this morning. We needed that. Thank you very much, Tula Trikamji, head of the Allergy and Immunology Unit at University of Cape Town. You can make sure you cure yourself from whatever allergies you're suffering. Take some action.